Hello everyone and welcome back to the coverage of the Jerusalem FIDE Grand Prix 2019. It's Wei Yi versus Anish Giri. Two of their classical games have ended in a draw, and the first rapid game ended in a draw, so this is the second game of the rapids where Wei Yi has the white pieces, and well, everything about this game is interesting. It features a really weird opening, really cool middle game, and most important of all, there is no end game. So a bit of a spoiler there, but I'm sure you're gonna agree that it doesn't matter. And we do have a nice photo of this matchup. Here it is, even though it's from the first rapid game where Giri had the white pieces, but we don't have still a photo from the second rapid game. In the background, there you see the blurry Nepo battling it out with Boris Gelfand. So that being said, let's check out the game. Wei Yi with the white pieces opens with e4. We have c5, the Sicilian defense, and here we have bishop to e2, the so-called slow variation, which well, is very flexible. That goes without saying, but on the other hand, it allows black to pretty much do whatever black wants. So we have knight to c6 by Giri, with f4 by Wei Yi, and the immediate d5. So already black achieves the dream, executes d5 in the Sicilian, but it's one of the well, nicer things about playing this variation. We have d3, and now Giri doesn't want to trade, captures, and trade queens. Instead, he goes for g6, just continuous development. We have knight to f3, knight to f6, and now e5, pushing the knight back. And here there is a game where knight to g8 was played, the knight to g4 is a known move, but Giri goes for knight to h5. His idea is he wants to remaneuver the knight to g7 and then to e6 to put pressure on f4. And it is already, as of move 6, that we have a completely new game, something that does not happen very often, especially in elite chess. We have castles by Wei Yi, and knight back to g7. We have bishop to e3, continuing development, now d4. An important move, as you want to move the bishop away from the defense of the f4 pawn, so knight to e6 comes with a threat. So bishop to f2, and now knight to e6, putting pressure on f4. So Wei Yi defends it, and the bishop to g7. Now everything is ready for Giri to castle. We have knight b to d2. Now after black advanced the pawn to d4, he weakened the d4 and c4 square, so perhaps white can use that to get a better central square for his knight. We have castles by black, and now c3. Just challenging black center, and black does the same. We have f6 challenging white's strong center. We have e captures on f6, e captures on f6, and now queen to b3, putting pressure alongside this diagonal, and also making it somewhat difficult for white to develop the light square bishop. So we have king to h8, immediately unpinning, and rook f to e1. With b6, now the b pawn will no longer be a target, and now bishop to f1. Black will probably develop the light square bishop on this diagonal, so white will probably do the same to counter the effects of the dark square bishop. We have d captures on c3, b captures, and knight to c7 now. Now Giri decides that he wants to develop the bishop this way, which will come with an attack on the queen, and then the knight can maybe come to d5. We have rook a to d1, and now comes bishop to e6. Just attacking the queen and asking Wei Yi, do you perhaps want to capture on e6? And if you capture on e6, you get knight to a5. That's the problem. You kick away the queen from the defense of the rook, so the queen will not be able to stay on this diagonal. The queen has to move, and then you pick up the rook. So after this queen to b2 move, after bishop to e6, we have queen to b2, just getting the queen out of the way, and now queen to d7, preparing to bring the other rook into the game. We have d4, and now c captures on d4. We have knight captures on d4, knight captures, and bishop captures. And here, bishop to g4, putting pressure on the rook here. Black would really enjoy if white moves the rook from the d file, then black can just completely own the d file. Bishop to e2, countering black's light square bishop, and now rook a to e8. And if you look at this position, rook a to e8. If you look at this position, it is a complicated position. A lot of pieces on the board. Both players still have the bishop pair, and most of all, white has two isolated pawns, so the a pawn and the c pawn. However, the c pawn, although it's not a very strong pawn, it will do wonders guarding the bishop on d4. So if white gets to keep the bishop on d4, that bishop is just a monster controlling the entire board. So bishop captures on g4, we have queen captures on g4, and now knight to c4. We have knight to d5 by Giri, and here comes queen to f2. Knight to d5, it's an excellent square for the knight, but it also comes with the threat of just knight captures on f4 as the g pawn is pinned. So queen to f2, defending if black should capture, and now rook to d8. Getting out of the tension here, and now comes rook to d3 with ideas of maybe doubling rook on the d file, but also just adding another defender to the third rank. We have rook f to e8, and now comes a very creative move by Wei Yi, which starts an avalanche of crazy ideas. Knight to d6, which is just well, asking black what you want to do. Your rook is under attack, and it's under attack twice. So here, Giri trades once. We have rook captures, queen captures, and now, okay, you cannot capture the knight because it's just mate in two. Check, bishop blocks, and then this is mate. So Giri plays king to g8. Now rook captures on d6 is a threat because after, let's say, well, not that, but after the queen checks, now you can block bishop f8 because the king guards the bishop. And here comes knight to e8, and here is where the magic happens. Now the bishop is under attack, so if you eliminate this bishop, then nothing will be able to oppose white's dark square bishop. And well, it's not easy to find a move here for black, especially for Giri, who is very low on time. So just to point out how many things can go wrong, if you try something like bishop to f8, seems like a reasonable idea. You know, white will be unable to capture your bishop. Also, you have in mind maybe something like rook d7, rook e8 to pick up the knight here. But the problem is white has bishop captures on b6. Seems like a weird move, you know, like nothing is happening on the queen side. What's the point of this? The point is, if the bishop is captured, you play rook captures on d5, and you've eliminated all the defenders of the f6 pawn. So now you don't really have a move, it's just lost for black. And of course, if you capture, then it's a monster fork. The queen, king, and rook are forked, and there's nothing to do here for black. But there was a move where Giri, in this position, that Giri could have improved his position. It's a hidden move, and well, now that I've told you about what all the all the poison lurks in the position, I'm sure you would have found it by now. But it's queen to f5. Point is that now you've remaneuvered the queen away from the dangerous g4 square, so in the future, knight captures on f6 will not be capturing the queen, and you don't lose time doing it because the rook on d3 is under attack. So once the rook moves, then you go bishop to f8, and now black is even better. So this is a slight improvement for Giri in the position, although it's unrealistic to say that it was in the position, since it's a rapid game. Giri was very low on time, and you have to play something. So here, Giri played an even better move. Well, or so he thought. He played knight captures on f4, and it seems reasonable. Well, the knight cannot be captured, the pawn is pinned. The rook is under attack, knight to h3 also is coming. So it's definitely a great move, but it loses the game. So feel free to pause the video and try to find why it loses the game while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on figuring out that the knight on d5 was a really important piece because it was covering the e7 square. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's queen to e7. When the knight captured on f4, it lost the control of the e7 square, and now just queen captures on g7 is the threat of checkmate. And Giri continued with knight to h3 check, but just to show you, eliminating the threat of mate by removing the knight doesn't really help black. After bishop covers with bishop to f8, you get rook e3. Now you control the e2 square twice, and there's no way to wiggle out of this one. If you go knight h3 check, just king g2. If knight f4 check, now you move back king f2. And now if knight h3 check once again, king e1. And here black is really without any compensation for the sacrificed exchange. And after, let's say, queen f5, threatening to go for some queen f2 check ideas, or maybe queen to b1 to harass the white king, just queen e6 check exchanges here, and you don't really have compensation. Yes, you are up a pawn, but a rook is a rook. So white will be winning this game without a problem. So after queen to e7, first we discussed the rook captures on a8, that doesn't work, and now knight to h3. This is what Giri played. We have king to f1, and now queen to f1 with check. now with idea of coming to f2, but now king to g2. Now queen f2 check is just met with king captures on h3. The queen can't even come to f2, so it's not even a threat. Forgot about our good friend the bishop here. And here rook to d7. You have to guard against the mate. So once again, pause the video here and try to find the incredible variation. The only line that wins this for white, and well, one of the bigger reasons why I decided to show you this game. Well, I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding this incredible line that features a temporary queen sacrifice. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's knight captures on f6. This comes with check. Of course, you cannot capture with the queen because you lose the queen. So bishop captures on f6 and now queen to e8 check, leaving black with only one move. That one move is king to g7, and now comes the move you had to find. I'm just going to give you a few more seconds to spot this one because it, you know, from that position, it's not an easy line to find. But, you know, congratulations to everyone who found it. It's queen captures on d7. And believe it or not, it was in this position on move 36 that Anish Giri resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. If the queen is accepted, then bishop captures on f6 with check. Well, king captures and the rook captures on d7, leaves you with this terrible endgame, which is very easily winning. You have to save the knight, then rook captures on a7. Next, you're going to capture this pawn as well, and this is completely winning for white. And the other option is to not accept the queen, is to just move the king from check, but this is even worse, because queen captures. Now you have to capture the queen back. Now bishop captures on f6. You are up a whole rook, and again, if knight g5, you just trade down into a Jan Gustafsson endgame where one player has a rook and the other player doesn't. So queen captures on d7 with check, very impressive stuff, and well, it's just one of the nicer ways to win a game that I've seen in quite a while in top tier chess. So yeah, with this loss, Anish Giri is eliminated from the FIDE Grand Prix. Like I said, two of the classical games were drawn, then the first rapid game was drawn, and then the second game was won by Wei Yi. So that's it for Anish Giri, and the Wei Yi advances to the upper floors of the tournament. So I do hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I would like to thank Paul Boynton and Sven Feuera for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the FIDE Grand Prix 2019, the last leg of it. Continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, and of course, whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day, and do be a part of the subscribers video. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. Perhaps I said that twice, but, you know, still, have an excellent rest of your day.